If we asked great Australians to put their hands up, I'm sure no one would volunteer. That's part of being Australian, just getting on with it, not thinking about greatness. But we should celebrate fellow Australians who've made and continue to make remarkable contributions in their fields. It takes a lot to make a leading man. Talent, of course. Talent that has shone on the opera stage, the concert stage, and above all, in musical theatre. It takes a great deal of dedication and hard work, a lifetime, in fact, of rehearsal and practice. If a boy from Wollongong is to rise to the top of his profession as an entertainer who has brought and continues evenings and matinees to bring joy to countless Australians, it takes a very special person to overcome the trials that life can throw up, to battle cancer and then resume a stellar career. It takes a great artist to define some of the most iconic roles in modern musical theatre. It takes Anthony Warlow, a great Australian. Mum was a singer, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. She was an amateur singer, but a beautiful voice.
Dad was a very artistic man, a very good portrait photographer. And you were in the Arcadians from very young.
Yes.
What did you do, and where did you think, this is me, this is where I'm going to go?
Well, I remember my father coming home one day. I was 11, and he came home from work with an LP, and it was Harry Seacombe. And it was him singing, you know, falling in love with love, and if I ruled the world, every day would be the first step. And I loved this album.
But did someone teach you?
In those days, no, I didn't have a teacher. He then came to me when I was 11 and said, would you like to learn to sing correctly? Would you like me to sort of get you into the conservatorium? And I said, I'd love that. So he enrolled me into the Wollongong branch of the New South Wales Conservatorium.
A Wollongong boy, and at 19 years of age, in Benjamin Britten's Midsummer Night's Dream, alongside Richard Bonning and everybody, what were you thinking?
Well, I thought I was in paradise, to be honest. When I got into the rehearsals, there are two moments in the opera where Puck has to impersonate Lysander and Demetrius. To map them up, you see. And Lysander is a tenor and Demetrius is a baritone. So I thought, well, I've been having singing lessons and I wanted to sing opera. So I decided that I would sing, you know, Lysander, come here. And one particular night, Richard and Joan were in the audience. At the end of the performance, there's a rap on my dressing room door, and it's Richard Bonning. I nearly faint because he was, you know, the doyen of the operatic world. And he said, my dear boy, he said, that's had a marvellous voice, marvellous voice. You know, I had no idea, such a maturity and such, you know, one so young. You know? And I said, well, I'd actually like to sing opera. It's something that I would aspire to do.
Your range is extraordinary. People don't know whether you're a tenor or a baritone.
This has been part of the problem in my career.
You should just explain. I mean, we can do the soprano bit as in...
As in...
And we can do the tenor bit. And we can do the baritone. Did you learn that from others in the opera company?
Yes,
or were
I did.
They good teachers? Yeah.
No, I watched.
You did the Tales of Hoffmann with Joan, didn't you?
That's right. I played Spallanzani and had a great success with it. And it was wonderful working with Joan, because when you're that close to an instrument like that, all you can do, if you don't wish to learn, you're an idiot. I mean, and just having to turn the key at the back of her and watching that bodice expand, and extraordinary.
Go down and come up. And down
just wonderful.
We talked about A Midsummer Night's Dream, Richard Bonning, Joan Sutherland, Tales of Hoffmann, and then, of course, The Phantom. And then you're also very young, and cancer.
Yeah, that was a tough time.
A lot of people out there watching this now are perhaps going through those experiences or have been there. How did you feel? How did you react? What did you really think?
Well, when it first was delivered to me, I did ask the question why. I think everyone does. Why me? I had an album that was being promoted, and I was doing a lot of work with that. And when I went to the hotel to do the launch of the Superstar, I arrived and literally got out of the car and blacked out, fainted. And they helped me into the hotel. They took me to my room. I had a glass of water. I went onto the bed and saw the room spinning around. And I thought, oh, I'm just exhausted. I've been doing, running around with publicity for the album and what have you. And I really felt quite unwell. I had felt a little like a pea around this part of my neck for some time, but didn't think much of it. Thought it might have been a bit of a cyst or something. Anyway, at that point I thought, no, I need to get someone to look at me. So I went in and just gave myself over to the good Lord and thought, just get me through this. And the next morning, I don't know what time it was, but I remember Celia coming out with me in the bed, and I woke up and looked at her and said, is it this or this? And she went like that, and I fell asleep for another 3 hours. So I knew that it was only a small incision. So now, there's Vanity for you. Yeah. But, literally, there's Vanity.
Well,
I'm thinking, well, it could be, what kind of career will I have?
I think we measure things. We measure the gravity in terms of size, don't we?
But interestingly enough, Alan, having just said that, will I have a career? I intended to survive this, obviously then.
So you're mentally strong.
And I just wasn't ready to go.
And what was your first role when you came back?
Oh, Secret Garden.
Secret Garden was.
That's right. And
most probably is your favourite role, I think.
Well, it is. It isn't funny. I can't remember.
Because of what Secret Garden is about.
It's about the gift of children and survival. And Phantom is about do not judge the book by the cover. And it's a bit the same with Archie, who was a hunchback. And it was a tough time for me because I was on oral chemotherapy for 6 months while I was doing the production. So, my body was still adjusting to being well again. Before I had the cancer removed, everything seemed very baritonal. But as soon as that was removed, everything was lighter. Consequently, my voice shot up about half an octave. Everything was brighter and lighter, and I was a better singer for it. Not only because of the physical change that had happened to me, but the emotional change that had happened to me, and the courage and strength that I gained from that.
You are so many things that the public don't know. There are so many things that you are capable of doing. You're a great imitator. You're a magician.
Well, you did say about pulling something out of nowhere.
Yes,
I'll just do that.
This is ridiculous.
Right. So there you go. There's a lovely bit of silk. You can play with that.
And do you make them green or what?
Well, no, that's
the red one, isn't it?
That's it. I could make it disappear if you really wanted me to.
I think you should.
Would you like me to?
I don't want it, so get rid of it.
You get rid of it?
Yeah.
So what we do is we're going to put it in here. We're going to place it in here. This is like that. There. Now that you have to say the magic word for me, Alan, which is FDR.
FDR.
Right, so FDR, we rub this. And there you go, it's gone. I did all this as a kid. My life was a fantasy life, I have to say. But at the same time, it wasn't always just a hobby. Everything that I picked up, I thought, I can use this down the track. My magic I've used with the opera company. When we did Pirates of Penzance, I produced a blue fairy out of nowhere when the Pirate King... So I think about things. I think about what the dialogue says. Well, the dialogue says, by he was something pestered by an ill-tempered fairy. So I thought, well, if there's an ill-tempered fairy, I'll pull out a fairy and throw it in the air. And the audience would go, oh! And it's wonderful to hear that gasp of delight from an audience. We're up there every night. We're actually presenting it's almost like a movie, but it's live. You sense people watching this thing as if it's a huge cinema screen. And we are 40 foot high to them because...
Every night to you is the first night.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, you're nervous, you might be sweating, you're anxious.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you take nothing for granted.
No, and I think if you do, it becomes a bore to you and a bore to the audience.
You're a very lucky person in the sense that some of the greatest moments in your musical life are recorded. They're there, and that can be done again. On the other hand, you came back to Phantom because you wanted your daughter to see you in Phantom. She wanted to know that you're more than the person. How important were you nervous?
Absolutely. Hal Prince, Dame Joan Sutherland, Maestro Richard Bonning could have been sitting in the front row. They meant nothing to me because Phoebe was behind them, and I was so nervous because my daughter was behind them. And I thought, I'm doing this because I want you to see what made me a profiled artist in this country, and also just to see the joy that creating a character can give people, and how a character can move people.
What about your transition from, there was a moment there where you must have thought, opera is going to be the medium for me, but you've actually chosen musical theatre. Is one excluding the other? I
think it kind of chose me in a way.
Right.
I feel that while I have operatic potential in the sound that I create, because I was taught classically, and I think that any young person who has ever come up to me and say, "Can you give me some advice? I want to be you," I say, number one, don't be me, be you.
Be you, quite.
But also have some kind of classical background, because it gives you a great strength to be able to connect to a style but retain a classical technique which will allow you to do that style without damaging the sound.
Well, that's what I like about your singing. You're always in low gear. There are too many people out there, they're pushing it all the time, aren't they? They've got their feet flat to the boards, and the instrument gets destroyed.
Absolutely, and you see, I use the phrase backpedaling. Once you've ridden your bicycle and the bicycle is zipping down the road, you see them when they backpedal, and that's the song. But the mechanism is still going, but you're not actually pushing pressure onto the tyres.
Now, in terms of just musical theatre, now that that's your medium and people love you in doing it, are you going to go on doing these things? Are there other roles that you'd like to play?
I would love to continue on. I mean, as I get older, of course, there are the more character-driven roles. I think I've been clever by making a career, as it were, with character roles. I mean, I started off when I was young and blonde, I had hair, and I was able to play the Juve leads, and that was terrific. But strangely enough, the Juve leads kind of were really only 2 or 3, and then it was Phantom. Yeah. So I put my stamp on the industry as a character baritone, and that's what I do, and I'm always character-driven.
Thank you for talking to us, and thank you for all the pleasure you've given.
Thank you.
And the happiness that you've given to people front of house, but now I know the happiness that you bring to people back of house, which is wonderful.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me along here. It's been
lovely
an absolute
to have
pleasure.
You, Anthony Warlow. For Anthony Warlow, if one performance falls a bit flat, there's always tomorrow.